we have a couple of guys that spent time in the UFC, then spent time outside of the UFC, and now they're back. We have Locomotivo, Nicolas Dalby taking on a short notice replacement in Jesse the Body Snatcher Ronson. You might be familiar with Jesse Ronson from his first stint in the UFC. It did not go well. He lost 3 fights in a row. He took on really tough competition that we'll get into in a bit. Nicolas Dalby, for what it's worth, had that draw against Darren Till that a lot of people like to talk about. Then he lost 2 in a row, got cut. Then he went to Cage Warriors, lost a split to Carlo Pedersoli in one of the more fun fights you're ever going to see. Went on a big win streak, fought Ross Houston to unify the promotion's welterweight belt.
Slip and slide out of blood in that cage.
And it was one of the most intense fights you're ever going to see, and I wish we could have a rematch, but we won't because Ross Houston ended up signing with Bellator. So, Nicolas Dalby comes in on somewhat a short notice at home in Denmark and fights Alex Oliveira and beats him. And again, Alex Oliveira isn't the cowboy of old, but he still puts up a pretty decent fight. That fight, of course, at 70. Pretty much everybody, if you go on MMA decisions, and I say pretty much everybody scored it for Dalby. There were a few 29-28s, one 29-27 from friend of the show, Drake Riggs, and everybody else 30-27. So he won that fight handily. I know you're going to get into it a little bit coming up. Jesse Ronson, for what it's worth, I know he's 1-2 in his last 3. Discount that first loss because he was supposed to be taking on a guy in Carlos Silva, and it would have been what it was going to be. But Silva missed weight. So across the cage or across the way, you had Natan Schultz that won the first season of the PFL at lightweight. Well, his opponent missed weight. So on a day's notice, they matched the 2 up. Jesse Ronson didn't really want the fight. They made it happen. He loses. Then he loses his next fight by finish. And then he won his last one, but it is what it is. Again, I keep saying that, but again, BTC is a good promotion in Canada. It was a decent win. But for Jesse Ronson to come in, and you can see it there, there's an asterisk at 55. He spent the majority of his career at 55. He's moving up against a legit welterweight, Nicolas Dalby. The cards are stacked against him. I mean, it's tough to try and go with a Jesse Ronson win here.
And it really is, because in a lot of fights, it can be okay. Someone's better at striking and wrestling, but their opponent, who most likely is going to lose, has that one X factor where, oh, okay, they're better. Jesse Ronson, I don't know what he does better than Nicolas Dalby. He's not a better wrestler. I don't think he's better on the mat. I think he's better getting up from the mat. He's definitely not the better striker out of the 2. And just really, when you look at this fight, it's sort of a springboard fight for Nicolas Dalby, who outside of North America is a pretty big name. He was a huge name in Cage Warriors. They really marketed him very well. And a lot of people do know him for that Till win. Him and Till have trained together since. That fight was crazy too. He gets hurt early and then comes back to hurt Till at the end of that fight. Not saying that that's the Nicolas Dalby or that's the Darren Till that we're going to get for this event, but just kind of a neat little fight that they had back in the day. Jesse Ronson is fighting an uphill battle, and that's really the key to this whole thing. You're fighting a guy who's much bigger than you, who's fought the higher level of competition and had way more success against that higher level of competition. So I just don't really see how Jesse Ronson's going to be able to get it done.
Here's where it gets really funky fresh. So if you look over on Tapology, you have 832 votes, 95% going with Dalby, 63% saying he's going to win by decision. If you look over at the odds, and again, it's a short kind of amount of time, but he went from a minus 500 favorite Dalby to minus roughly 265, 270. So that's kind of a weird shift in the odds. Now, again, this is a shame because maybe Jesse Ronson comes out and does something slick and wild and beats Nicolas Dalby. I don't see that happening. Nicolas Dalby should be able to win this fight. And again, I think this is kind of a speed bump to keep moving forward. And for Nicolas Dalby at 35, at 70, it's getting a little tough.
Exactly.
And the competition's going to keep going up, especially with the win over Oliveira. So we'll have to see what happens with Jesse Ronson. Again, I mean, Nicolas Dalby had those losses, and it's a type of guy that if he was fighting, let's say that fight against Oliveira never happened, and then you had a guy like this on Contender Series, he had a lot of demons. He had a really tough time,
he did.
At the end of his UFC tenure with going back to Cage Warriors, but he performed incredibly well. And the tough thing too for Jesse Ronson, so Nicolas Dalby was getting ready for Hot Chocolate Danny Roberts. Early in the spring, on the London card, that one fell through. Then the fight was supposed to happen on this card. It fell through. Roberts is out due to injury. So you have the smaller guy in Ronson stepping in. Again, it's hard to pick good things to say about poor Jesse Ronson. And I know we should be with our fellow countrymen
normally are.
in Ronson, but yeah, I see this.
And I don't see this being like a Tristan Connolly taking out a Michel Pereira, just because Nicolas Dalby's not going to go out there and just waste his gas tank in the first round. Like, he's a very cerebral fighter, really good fight IQ. So if he does have success early on, he's probably just going to keep on going to the well of whatever did give him the success. So I just don't see how Nicolas Dalby's going to be able to lose this fight.
Matt, really looking forward to this one. Nicolas Dalby, Jesse Ronson. Jesse, you know what? If you make us eat our words, it happens. We got 15 fights in total, so 14 more to preview. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, Matt. And as we always say, let's get into it.